Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, my dearest students. You are welcome to e-learning program organized by Islamic College Osogbo. This is jss1 Business Studies, and today's topic is on double entry bookkeeping. Double entry bookkeeping. The first thing that should come into your mind is the meaning of double entry system. Meaning of double entry system. What is double entry? Double entry is a means of making entry twice for each transactions. That is either cash receipt or cash payment. You know, in a particular discussion, that is in our last discussion, I made mention that for a given buyer to buy certain goods, there is need for him or her to pay certain amount of money. By the time this money is paid, the seller is going to receive a particular amount of money. So when the buyer gives, he is a giver. And when the seller receives, he is a receiver. We have two transactions there. That is the buyer and the seller. So when we are recording, or when we are making our entries into a particular book of original entry, by the time we record twice, it means it is double entry system. It is double entry system, and that is what people are using today. Inshallah, when we are progressing, you will know that we still have single entry system. That is incomplete record. But the complete record in terms of bookkeeping is double entry system, which is a means of making entry twice for each transactions, that is either cash receipt or cash payment. And I said it implies that for every giver there must be a receiver. Without being given, you cannot receive anything. So, and for every receiver there must be a giver. So, the two goes together. There is a rule which this double entry system is being governed. The rule says for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry. Once again, the rule says for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry, and the vice versa. For every credit entry, there must be a corresponding debit entry. This means that whenever you are given as a giver, there must be a receiver. Meaning that we are going to have two entries. We are going to have our debit entry And the debit entry should be correspond to that of a credit entry. Once again, I said the debit entry must correspond with credit entry. That is the reason why we say we have double entry system. So my dear student, once again, I said the rule says for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry, and for every debit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. That is the rule. That is the rule. So at your level you have to master it. You may be asked in the exam, what is the golden rule of double entry system? The golden rule says for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry, and for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. So the two are to be understandable. I said for every giver there must be a receiver, and for every receiver there must be a giver. So these very rules has explained that whenever you give, you must have someone that you give to, and that is a receiver. And before you are given as a receiver, you must have a giver. So the two goes together. Every giver must have a receiver. Every receiver must have a giver. That is the rule. So the rule now says for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry, and for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. That is the rule. So once again, you need to know and master the golden rule of original entry. So the next thing here is to now know the implication of those transactions that are to be treated under the double entry system. The first thing we are going to treat here is that of assets. Assets. When we say assets, assets are those properties that are valuable, used by a particular company or a particular business owner. Once again, I said assets. They were property owned by a particular business owner that are valuable to that very business. When we say valuable, I mean those materials needed that are useful for the business sector. So example of assets by a particular business owner is that of land where the business is being erected. Land where the business is functioning. Another example is that of vehicle. It may be in form of car, it may be in form of lorry, it may be in form of even train, it may be in form of anything that can move from one place to another to take our valuable goods, valuable materials, valuable items. So all these we are going to treat them one after the other when time comes. The other transaction is that of liabilities. Liabilities. Once again, liabilities are other transactions that is needed in the double entry system of our bookkeeping. And what is liability? Liabilities amount of money that a person or a business owner owns to the outside world. What the business owner owns to the outside world is referred to as liabilities. Once again, I said the amount of money that a business owner owns to the outside world is referred to as liability, or whatever a person owns certain people is referred to as liability. Example is that of a creditor. Creditor means money that you own to the outside world. We have loan. Loan is the amount of money taken, maybe from the bank or from well-wisher who want your business to progress. So liability are amount of money that a person or a business owner owns to the outside world. So this liability is also going to be treated under our double entry system of bookkeeping. The last but not the least is that of expenses. Expenses. So when we say expenses is just the amount of money that we spend to buy things that are valuable to the business. So that is expenses, is a amount of money that we spend on basic things that are useful for a particular business. So that is expenses. In some textbook, it may be written as expenditure. Whether it is expenditure or expenses, it's the same thing. So at your level, you should know that any money spent on basic things that are valuable, that are useful for a particular business is referred to as expenses. Example of expenses here is that of stationery. When we say stationery, I mean those books, biros, cleaners, and so on and so forth that we are making use of in our offices for the progress of our business. Then we have postages. Postage is another expenses in the transaction of our business. So postages here means the amount of money we spend to carry our messages to our customers. Then we have transport. We have transport. Transport is the amount of money that we spend to take our goods and services from one place to another. That is transport. Whether it is stationery or postages or stationaries, all these are expenses incurred in a particular business, and it is going to assist the business. Expenses assist business at a particular point in time. So all these are going to be treated under our double entry system of our bookkeeping. The first item there, I said it is assets, which is the property that are valuable, owned by that very business owner, that made the business viable. And I give example of that of land and that of vehicle. The other one is that of a liability. And I said liability is the amount of money that a particular business owner or a person owns to the outside world. And I gave example of creditors and that of loans. The last one is that of expenses, which I said is the amount of money that is spent on basic things that are useful for a particular business. And I gave example of that of a stationery, postages, and that of a transports. So basically, inshallah, in the next lesson we are going to discuss on how to enter assets, liability, and that of expenses under our double entry bookkeeping. By the special grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, next lesson we are going to look into those aspects one after the other. Conclusively, I mentioned the meaning of double entry for you, which is of making twice of our transaction, whether it is cash receipt or cash payment. And I said it implies that whenever we have a giver, we should have a receiver, and whenever we have a receiver, we should have a giver. And I said there is a golden rule that governs this very double entry, and it says that for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry, and for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. Once again, I said for every debit entry there must be a corresponding credit entry, and for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. That ends the introduction to double entry system of our accounting. So inshallah, next lesson, by the special grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are going to conclude on the posting of these very items, one after the other. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.